Good morning, wonderful students. This is Mr. Morales, and this is the review for the 6 weeks exam for Algebra 1. So I'm going to jump right into it. Number 1, use the function below to answer the following. So we have this graph of a function, and first of all, they want us to find the domain and the range. Well, the domain is how wide the graph goes, and judging by these arrow tips, the graph is eternally expanding to the left and to the right. So when you have negative eternity to positive eternity, you have what we call all real numbers, or in other words, you have that fancy looking R. You can also have the inequality negative infinity to positive infinity, but that one's not so common. The range, however, is a little different. The range deals with our y variable, and the range also has to deal with the height of the graph. As we see here in this example, the graph bottoms out here at -2. And the graph does make contact with the -2 line, so we have an equal sign, but it's everything above the -2 going on up forever, so that would be greater than. So we have all real numbers for the domain, and we have y is greater than and equal to -2 for the range. The next two questions have to do with individual values. We want to know what's the value of the function when x is 3. So if we go to +3 and we go up to where our graph is, and we find the corresponding y value, we get a 2. Our next question is about what's the function value when for f of 0. That means when we're at 0 on the x-axis, we hit our graph down here at -2. And those are the two solutions for that part. Number 2 asks us to do some calculations. So I'm going to go ahead, and it asks us to go ahead and use our calculator, so we're going to use nsolve. Let me back up here so you can see it a little better, and actually let me move my laptop a little bit. There we go. So we're going to go ahead and use nsolve for both of these. So our first equation is 3 parentheses a plus 6 equals a plus 12. So we'll go ahead and we'll go to menu, 3, 1 for nsolve or numerical solve, and we'll enter this equation in exactly the way we see it with the variable a and everything. Equals a plus 12. After you've entered your equation, don't forget comma and whatever variable you're saving for. This only works for equations, and it only works for things in one variable, one letter. And here we get -3. So a equals -3. Our next equation to the right is going to be solved for x. So I'll go ahead and do menu 3, 1 again, and I'll enter the equation in exactly the way we see it. 6 times parentheses 5x minus 3, or 5 times x minus 3, equals the quantity 1/3. Let me get my fraction bar there. And then parentheses 24 times x plus 12, close parentheses, comma x. Hopefully I typed everything in correctly the first time, and I get 1. So those are my solutions for problem number 2. For problem number 3, they want us to find g of x, and they want us to find what the value is for x when x is turned into 8. So we'll go ahead and just substitute 8 into this equation. 6 times 8 minus 5. I know 8 times 6 is 48. Minus 5 gives me 43, which I could have also calculated. Number 4, this one is continuously giving students problem, so let's go ahead and break it down. We have the sum of 3 consecutive odd integers. So we're adding up 3 mystery numbers, and we know that they're all going to equal -51. So now we need to figure out what are these 3 numbers. So we'll just call the first one x. Whatever number it is our first odd number. Who knows what positive or negative? We have no idea. We know that if we add 2 more to x, we get the next or consecutive odd number in line, whatever it may be. And then if we add 2 more to that, which is the original x plus 4, that takes us to our third odd number away on the number line. So our original number, our odd number, whatever it is, the next number consecutively would be 2 spaces away, and the next number would be 2 spaces away from that, or 4 away from this one, total. So let's go ahead now and add all of our integers together. We have 1, 2, 3 x's. We have 2 plus 4 plus positive 6 equals -51. So now let's go ahead, and I can go ahead and just nsolve this to make it a little faster. So I'll go ahead and do menu 3, 1, and I have 3x plus 6 equals -51, comma x, because that's what I'm looking for, and it gives me x equals negative 19. However, the question asks for the next three, or find the three integers. So that's just the first one. That's our x. If you add plus 2 more than negative 19, you get negative 17. And if you add 4 to negative 19, you get negative 15. And we can verify with our calculator that these indeed are the three consecutive numbers, even if they are negative, that give us negative 51. So feel free to ask your teacher, or maybe depending on who is teaching or showing you this video, more clarification on this question in case it was a little fast for you. This is a review after all, so I'm not spending as much time on each problem. Number 5, find all the numbers such that 12 plus 6 times a mystery number is more than 78. It doesn't say at least 78, so we can't say it's going to be equal to. It has to be more than or greater than 78. So let's go ahead and solve for n. I'll subtract 12 from both sides. And I get 6n greater than 78 minus 12. 8 minus 2 is 6. 7 minus 1 is 6. I divide by 6 everything, and I get a nice answer of n is greater than 11. So every number that's bigger than 11 will make this statement true. Not too bad. That's a pretty basic one, just another two-step inequality in this case. There was no sign change because there was no multiplication or division by a negative number. If you see over here, I divided by a positive 6. Going on to number 6. Find the domain and the range for the graphs below. So for number 6, domain, which is the width of the graph, we have a starting point. So we're talking about x. It's actually equal to, or lines up with, negative 3. And since it's a solid dot, it's equal to. But it goes infinitely to the right, so that would just be positive infinity there with no equal sign because you don't ever reach infinity. The range now is the height of the graph that deals with the variable y. I have my double arrows. It reaches a minimum height of negative 5, and it does make contact. That's why that is shown with a solid dot, excuse me. But it goes infinitely in the upward direction, even if it is angled, so that would be positive infinity. And there is our domain and range for that graph. You could also just say x is everything greater than or equal to negative 3, and the range is y is greater than or equal to negative 5. You could leave out the infinities. It's understood just by the first half of these what is being said there. So be prepared to expect those type of answers as well. 6b, I suppose. Here we have a graph that has an open circle. So for the x value, it lines up with negative 6, but because it's an open circle, it's not equal to it. It just gets infinitely close to it, we'll say, but never really quite reaches it. And then for its right-hand value, the furthest it goes is to positive 3. The solid dot tells us that it does make contact with the positive 3 for the x-axis. Now, or at least lines up with the positive 3, excuse me, to the x-axis. Our range now being the height. And we always go from lowest or least to greatest. So I'll begin with my solid dot, which lines up to positive 1 on the y-axis. And a solid dot means that it does line up and exist at positive 1. The height, maximum height it goes up to, is to positive 4. But being an open dot, it does not equal. So we just leave the arrow as is. Now we have a literal equation. Solve the formula for v equals u plus at. Solve for t. So t is the variable we want to get all by itself. So the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of what's being either added or subtracted, which is this u. It's a positive u, so I'll subtract u, or minus u from both sides. So I have v minus u equals, cancels out, a times t. I want to get the t times it by itself, but it's being multiplied times a. So I'll do the opposite or inverse, which is divide by a. And I'll clean it up over here on the right. I have v minus u divided by a, cancels out over here, equals t. v minus u over a equals t. Number 8. The rectangle has a length of 4a squared plus 2a minus 10, minus 10, and a width of 5a minus 8. We know that the opposite sides of a rectangle are congruent, so the bottom has the same as the top, and the left has the same as the right. Then we'll also find the perimeter, so I'm going to go ahead and add all the like terms. I start with anything that has any variables that have exponents. in alphabetical order. So I have a squares. I have 4a squares on top, 4 more on the bottom. I only add the coefficients, the number in front, so I have 8a squares. Now let's talk just plain old letter A's. I have 2 letter A's, plus 5 more is 7, plus 2 more is 9, plus 5 more is positive 14 letter A's, only adding the numbers in front. Now I have my constants. I have negative 10 on the top, minus 10 more on the bottom is negative 20, minus 8 more is minus 28, minus 8 more is negative 36.